Okay, we can start.
Go?
Go.
All right. It's 5:06 p.m. on the 22nd of February, 2015. We're here interviewing Alexander Zvielli about his life here in his apartment in Rehavia. Oops. All right. Okay, so...
Yes, I am at your disposal.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. I know 1921, but I don't know what date. So let's just start your life story.
19th of April 1921, I was born in Warsaw.
19th of April?
1921.
19th of April.
19th of April 1921.
Okay.
My mother was a teacher of elementary school for Jewish girls in Warsaw. A good friend of Korczak, Janusz Korczak, yes, because he was arranging the summer vacation for the children from her school. You have no idea the poverty in Warsaw, in the ghetto, before the ghetto and before the war. Utter hopelessness, lack of work, poverty.
Could you describe what kind of poverty?
Fighting for every penny, a few pennies to have bread, to have onions, yes, to have a piece of fish for Friday and Saturday, that's all. There were children who had never seen a flower. Can you believe it? And in the winter, my mother used to go from home to home of wealthy people collecting shoes because the children could not come. You went to they lived also not on the first floor. You know, it was in Warsaw, the houses were built in a different way. There was a house and the house and the house. The front house was more expensive, less expensive. The last house was the least expensive. And below, there were people living in terrifying circumstances. You got then, it was bad smell. Windows were only small windows going to the street. 4 or 5 children in a bed. And father trying to bring some money. So he was selling apples, and police was hunting him because owners of the shops complained that he was ruining his business. It was a very hard life.
These Jews were born in Warsaw? They came from the shtetls around Poland?
The big immigration started after the First World War. They were coming, and because they were coming from villages, because there was nothing to do in villages. In 1930, I went for a wedding to a place where my father was born, a small place which was named Pierzchnica. Pierzchnica is iron down. Jews lived there from geese, because geese produced iron down and meat. There was a tremendous poverty, and every child, boys 16, 18, were coming to my father, "Mister, take us to Warsaw. We will work without money just to get out from this hole." You see, a Pole could work in a post office, on the railways, in the army, in the police, in administration. Everything was open. For Jew, all this was closed. No Jew worked with railways. No Jew worked in administration. No Jew. The only people like my mother worked for them because she was a teacher. Teachers for a Jewish school, yes. So she was a teacher, and my father started with his brother a small printing house, and they worked very hard, and they prospered. It was quite a big printing house, printing books, everything. I went to a school, and I wanted, after the war, there was no future. I was, just when I graduated, I wrote together with one of student, a friend of mine, we wrote a small book about the future of Polish Jews. It was about 120 pages. And my father agreed to print it, and we printed it. And in the morning, I came to pick up the first few books, and I was told that everything was taken away. The censor confiscated it.
How old were you?
18.
Wow.
So I got a letter that I have a right to appeal. I was given the address. This was the Ministry of Education. Incidentally, during the war, Gestapo was in the same building. So everybody told me, don't be a fool. You go, you appeal, you are fixed. They won't accept you to the university. But I said, I am going to France to study medicine. I wanted to study medicine. I sent my papers to France, and my father said, okay, there is no future in Poland, go to France. But I went. I remember my experience because I was sitting in a corridor at the censor's office, and there was an Ukrainian sitting next to me. And we started talking. His pamphlet or something was also confiscated. So he started at me, you Jews think that only you are the victims. We are the victims. We are 3 million Ukrainians in Poland. We are as many as you are, and this is our country, and Poles are trying to get us out. So I went to finally I was called. I appeared before the official. He asked me what I have to say. I said, look, show me one thing which is not correct. That is very difficult, almost impossible to get to the university. That is almost impossible. You don't was in the army. When I went, I was called, I was given postponement. Why? Because as I graduated, I should have gone to the officer schools, but they didn't want Jews in officer school. So they gave me infinite postponement. Said, okay, you can go, finished. Nothing. I lost the book, everything. But it was experience. I got already in trouble with Poles. Later I got in trouble with Russians and so on.
We'll get to that in a few minutes. First of all, tell me about your family. You have any siblings?
Yes, I had my sister. She was very gifted. She played piano. She stayed with my parents when I went out. As a matter of fact, this was on the 6th of September 1939. During the night there was an announcement that young people should go to the eastern part of the Poland where they will be mobilized. So I said, okay, I asked my father to join me. We went through the streets of Warsaw, there was no traffic, up to the bridge, and on the other bridge there was a railway. And the people we are not alone, there were hundreds of people. When my father saw it, he said, no, this is not for me. I am old man, you are young man, you go. This is the last I saw of my family. We parted, and we went as far as possible to the east, in case when Hitler gets through, to go over to the Soviet Union. Not to stay. I didn't want, and my cousin who was with me, we decided we will not stay under Hitler under any circumstances. So we went up to about half a mile from the Soviet border. There was a very nice Jewish village there, close to Rovne. Rovne was the city. About 10 kilometers east of Rovne, there was, I don't remember the name of the place, but the Jews received as, it was a very harrowing journey, which took about 4 or 5 days. We went by foot, we traveled part by train, a little on the buses, again on train, and until we got to the Soviet border. And there we were very nice received. And on the 17th, the border was about half a mile from us. But on the 17th of September, the Russians got in. So in the morning, we saw tank after tank. The Russians were moving east to meet the Germans in the middle of Poland.
They were moving west. The Russians were moving west.
No, they were moving west.
Yes.
To meet the Poland on their first they decided on Wisla. Later they changed it to River Bug. They made a border. We decided, we stayed about a week there. We went to Lvov. I met some of my friends. So there was a dispute. Some of them, one of them later became a big Polish, Henryk Holland. You know Agnieszka Holland, have you heard the name? She produced many great films in Poland after the war. She was his daughter. He became later a big man in Poland, Henryk Holland, my good friend. And we were discussing whether to stay in the Soviet Union, maybe join the university or go to the work, but not to go to the German-occupied side, but to stay there. But I decided with a group of Hashomer Hatzair people to go to Palestine. We got to the Polish-Romanian border, and we tried to cross it, and we were caught. So I was arrested, taken to...
By whom?
By the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
We made it too late. We spent too much in Lvov. If we would move earlier, we would get into Romania. But nobody knows what would happen to us in Romania. Later, Romania was a terrible place. They sent all of them to over Dniester, to a place where people were dying, terrible situation. But we didn't know all of this. We wanted to get there. And we were betrayed. We were given a guide, and I think the guide brought the Soviet patrol upon us. We were arrested, taken to Stanislavov, later to Lvov, later to Nikolaev. I spent 9 months in a jail, Soviet jail in Nikolaev, which is a very nice town close to Odessa.
When you were arrested, what does that feel like? You're being arrested at the age of 18, 19. What are you thinking?
It was a shock. It was a shock. Because we didn't realize the danger. The travel already. It's interesting. I will tell you something very interesting. Whenever Poles saw us as Poles, they were helping us, they were warning us. On the train to the border, a man came to me. We didn't travel together. We traveled two separately. A group is suspicious. So I was sitting with my cousin, and the Pole came to me. Look, I am giving you a warning. If you get to the place where you want to go, they will be arrested on the spot.
Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
But there is a place. Okay. But there is a place. But there is a place where the train will stop, not stop, but slow down.
Yes.
Just jump there. And I will take you to the place where you will be able to cross the border. Whenever we had Poles who thought that we are Poles,
And not Jews.
not Jews, everything was fine.
So you trusted him.
You trusted them. But listen, so he took us to his house, somewhere in the mountains. There were mountains. We came there, and his wife recognized that we are Jewish. So she said, whom you have brought me? But Jews, they will arrest us with them. I don't want any trouble. Get them out. So he said, gentlemen, I cannot keep you because my wife doesn't want. Go outside. It's already cold. It's 26th of October. It's already cold, but there is a place where you can sit until the morning. In the morning, I will take you over the border. We went there, but we were cold, so we moved. We moved and we started walking in the village. Fools, but suddenly we hear somebody speaking Yiddish. So we started speaking with him Yiddish. He took us to his home. He said, I will take you to a place where there is a pension. You will stay there, and they will arrange for you how to cross the border. And he did it. He put us in his wagon. It was dangerous to travel on the road, but they knew him and they didn't suspect that somebody is inside. We arrived at the place that was a pension in a very kurort called Zaleszczyki. We went to a pension where they received us nicely. The daughter took us to the store, said, the Soviets will take everything away anyhow. Take whatever you want, dress however you want. Back in the morning, my friend, a local man, will take you to the border. He came at 2 o'clock in the night. He took us, and we lost sight of him. And suddenly, he betrayed us. Okay, so in Nikolaev, I never saw my judges, but I was interrogated. But I had a good story. My father was a printer. I am a professional printer. You know, I am not a bourgeois and so on and so on. Yes, I wanted to go to my... Okay, I got 5 years. My friend, who said that he is a good Zionist, got 8 years. Yes. And we traveled 3 weeks to the north. We were in Pechora. Pechlak were Begin, together with Begin. But Begin arrived much later. We were there almost a year. It was a terrible place. But we were lucky.
Yes, you were alive and you were in
No.
Russia.
Why we were lucky? The convoy went on the river Pechora. the convoy was one boat which was pulling and barges. And there were 300 from Kotlas north. If you look, Google, you will see the camp in Kotlas. There were about 10,000 Poles arrested there at that time. And they went all to build the railway connecting Kotlas and Arkhangelsk. So the barge, one boat was pulling the barges one after another, and we were on the last barge. And already there was ice. It was October. October, there is winter, almost winter. And our barge got stuck. So all the barges went north, and we went 3 days to the nearest station by foot, without anything, to a camp where they received us and where we started working on the railway. We were clearing woods, making place for the railway, carrying the rails. They were building it very quickly because they found oil there. And the oil saved them during the war. So it was a very important enterprise, but the way it was run, people were dying. There were very high norms. And the food was distributed according to how much you produced. You didn't get any money, but you could get one piece of bread, 300 grams, and water. You could get soup and 500. It depends on the group. There was a head of a group, and he was sending each man to work, and according to the norm that he worked, he gave him 300 grams or 500 grams and so on. Those who were unable to work were repairing nails. What it means, from the wood, which they stuck the wood, they took out the nails, straightened them, to use them again and over again. And it works like this. The work was from 5, 6 in the morning until 7, 8 in the evening. It was very difficult. Everybody was they weren't giving anything to dress. Your shoes went, so they gave you shoes made from the tires, cut from the tires, which hurt your. In the winter snow, it was very difficult, very, very difficult.
What are you thinking about your family that's still back?
There was no possibility of any contact.
1 second. Say that again.
Say that question again.
Okay, let me ask you again. Wait, let's start again because he was off camera. What were you thinking about your family? What was going on in Warsaw while you were there in Russia?
We were completely cut off from the world. There were newspapers, very difficult to get, so we had no idea that Soviet Union was prosperous because they had a pact with Germany. That was all that we knew. And all the time they were telling, look, in the West there is a war, but we are at peace. Look what our Stalin and so on is taking care of us and so on and so on.
Let me go back to Warsaw. First of all, you didn't tell me, your sister was older or younger?
Younger. She was, when I left, she was about 13 years old.
She was 6 years younger than you.
No, she was only 4 years younger. 4 years younger. Yes. I think she was born in 1926. It means 5 years younger.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. What kind of home was it? Was it a religious home? Was it a
No,
socialist home? Was it a
my father
Chiloni?
was brought up in a yeshiva, but he had a special attitude about the world, about the politics, about the parties. He saw so much in the press with all these politicians who gathered there with their disputes. He was a good Jew. He was a Zionist. He came here for a visit, and the people were...
When?
I think in 36 or 37 he came here for a visit. He was in Egypt, in Palestine. He came back. He said people were encouraging to bring some of his machinery because we had also stuff in Hebrew and in Yiddish and in Polish. He could set up a shop in Tel Aviv, and he said that he will think of it. But, you know, he was thinking of it. It happened to many.
Yes.
So, no sooner Germans entered Warsaw, in 1924 or 25, there arrived in Warsaw a German by the name of Anton Hergel. And he was a printing machine expert and mechanic. My father, not only my father, but many presses in Warsaw employed him. Until 1934-35, we were using all German machinery. Only after the boycott started, we started buying Mergenthaler from New York, machinery, linotypes. But until that time, everything was German, and he was expert. Shortly before the outbreak of the war, he evaporated, and he came together with the German army, and he was officer SS, and he was appointed Treuhänder. It means responsible for all the Jewish presses in Poland. Not only Jewish, also Polish government press. And he took them to Germany, including our press. You know how it worked. Why? Because from outbreak of the war, 1939, Germany was no longer allowing building printing machines. Why? Because they needed everything for the war. So they needed machine print. So they got it. So our printing press and the lead and the paper, everything, on the 26th of October, everything went to Germany.
You're growing up. What kind of schools did you go to growing up?
I went to the mathematics physics as a specialty. I found myself difficulty with languages. Latin and Greek and so on. So I preferred mathematics and physics. I graduated, okay.
You spoke Yiddish at home?
A little. We spoke Polish. I said my father was brought in yeshiva,
yes,
but he hated it.
And your mother?
My mother was a Polish teacher. I tell you a joke. 3 of my father's brothers went to America. 1 to the States, 2 in Canada. And they have beautiful families there. And they sent him all the papers. In 1923, he had papers to go to Canada and to establish a printing shop there. My mother said, no, I am Polish. I bring my children, my pupils in Polish school.
Don't put your hand on top of my
Sorry. I am not going, and we didn't go.
Life does have a strange way of working, right?
Yes, life is very strange.
As you're growing up, you're born 1921, so let's say 1930, you're 9 years old, you understand there's a world going on out there, you're starting to learn
That's
about other
right.
things. When did you first become aware that Germany was turning into Nazi Germany?
Oh, we knew it very well. Already in Warsaw, there were a lot of refugees from Germany. They came to my father, they asked for money, for food. They came to the press. They were
At the beginning of the 1930s. At the beginning of the 1930s already.
during the 1930s, until the outbreak of the war, a lot of refugees came. They were born in Poland and in Russia, but they lived in Germany, but Germany expelled them.
Did you know about Kristallnacht?
Certainly.
When it happened?
We were very well aware of everything. I was a member of Hashomer Hatzair
Yes.
in Warsaw. Yes, we attended meetings. I got some rudiments in Hebrew and so on and so on. We were very well aware of the situation.
In other words, you didn't go to any Jewish schools as a kid? You didn't go to Cheder, you didn't go to...
I didn't.
No.
My mother didn't allow it.
Did you have a bar mitzvah?
Yes, yes.
So you were just taught...
Proper bar mitzvah, yes, that's right.
And tell me about the other Zionist youth organizations in Warsaw. Did you know about Bnei Akiva? Did you know about... Were you all...
We knew there was a Tarbut school next to I went to a Jewish Polish gymnasium until the fourth degree, and later I transferred to the Polish school because I was very not good in Latin and Greek and all the subjects which were needed there.
So, okay. So you only learned Hebrew when you were hanging around...
Only with Hashomer
that's right,
Hatzair. To belong to a group, yes. We arranged for a trip to here and there. It was something to think of.
When you said, you had mentioned before, and when we wrote about this, for example, Jabotinsky would come to Warsaw and you'd see him.
Yes.
He was giving speeches to the Jews of Warsaw?
No. He came, he was busy with his work, he was doing correct, or I don't know. But when people heard that he is there, they started gathering outside of the building. And he went and he told them, Jews, today I appear here and there, come and listen to me.
Did you hear him speak?
No.
Was it because he was warning the people to get out of Europe?
Yes. There was no need warning. I already felt it. You see, during the vacations, I went to a Polish school and I have seen the animosity. And we had some pupils who during summer vacations went to Germany and brought pictures of Hitler, and they were very enthusiastic about Hitler. Poles were enthusiastic about Hitler. They didn't want to be slaves under German, but if he would treat them differently, maybe they would act different.
Did you encounter anti-Semitism? Did they call
Certainly.
you? They called you Žid?
No. I will tell you, whenever you were in Poles, with Poles, and they thought that you are a Pole, everything was fine. When they found that you are a Jew, there was a reserve. There were instances of animosity in Russia. Russian youth was very anti-Semitic.
But not as much Polish.
Yes, they said that Jews brought this
War.
not Bolshevism.
Yes,
upon
Bolshevism,
us.
yes, of course, yes.
They were aware and they treated them badly. You know, after liberation, I have seen how they treated a special punishment unit of young prisoners. So terrible, terrible. Everything on the double. Everything on the double. But they were all criminals. They told me, I lived with criminals when I was transferred after I got 5 years, we were transferred to Kharkov. Kharkov was a criminal prison. There I sat with criminals. One of them took a piece of glass and shaved my head. Yes. You would be surprised.
Yes, yes.
Not hurt me, he just cleared my head.
Because otherwise, of course, you couldn't get a haircut. There was no one giving a haircut.
Yes, they were
giving haircuts.
They have to give haircut, and once a week at least there was a hot
shower. You said that you felt already that you knew.
Look, Russian prison was terrible, but unless you deserved it, they didn't beat you. They didn't give you food. They didn't give you clothes. They forced you to work hard. They make you weaker and weaker. But unless you committed yourself, they never beat you.
What do you mean you didn't get food?
The food was very little.
Ah, yes.
Yes, you were always hungry.
What was the meal like? What was the daily, what did you get every day?
In jail, we got 300 grams bread and frozen small fish. And once a day, a soup of something. That's all. We were hungry and we protested. Why? When we were arrested, they took everything away. What we had, money, watches, everything. They left you naked except of your clothes, yes? In the room, you could see dollars, foreign currency up to here. They were, so when high officers in KVD visited us, we complained that we are hungry. And we had money, but the money was taken away from us. If we had money, we could buy. So they said 5 rubles a month. We got 5 rubles, prisoners, only in prison, not in the camp. 5 rubles a month. You could buy either cigarettes or bread. It was something. But you had no correspondence. You couldn't get no telephone call, nothing. You were completely cut off from the world.
And that's where you spent your 19th birthday in April of 1940.
I was arrested on the 26th of October 1939, and I was taken to camp in September 40.
Which camp?
In Vorkuta. It was very hard work there. Begin wouldn't last long there. He had a weak heart already, and it killed him. He wasn't used to such a work. Nobody was used to such a work, but we were younger. He wasn't young anymore.
Yes. You said before that you felt yourself, that you already knew that there was no future for Jews in Poland.
Yes, in Poland.
Did you not tell your parents, Abba, Ima, we have to get out of Europe, we have to get out of Poland, we have to leave, we have to get out of here. You know it's no good. But they were set in their ways, they wouldn't leave? Or was there no place to go?
Nobody expected what will happen. They would... Today, you can say that it was a good idea to tell my father, tell your brothers to send you papers again, yes? But my father was here. He came back. He could send one machine here. He could. It was, apathy. It was, and my mother still believed, there was a whole generation of, like, my father came from a yeshiva, from a small, but my mother came from a landed estate. Her grandfather fought for the Polish independence in 1863. It was January uprising. He got 20 years in prison. He was sent to Siberia. He was 20 years in Siberia. They thought that Poland would be, New Poland will be different country. They never expected. And under Piłsudski, it was still all right. The Hitler started, then Paul started imitating Hitler. Everything changed suddenly.
You talked about the poverty in Warsaw, and everyone trying to make a nickel.
There was no prospect.
There's no prospect.
And there was a boycott
Yes.
of Jews.
Yes.
What Jews lived by selling. He went to a village, he bought a cow, he brought it, he sold the meat, sold this, he lived. Now they didn't give him anymore the cow. It went to a cooperative because Jews were exploiting him. It was a boycott. So what he could do? Nothing. So they started working in small industries for nothing. A pair of trousers for a few pennies, to sew a pair of trousers, because just to have a piece of bread. It was tremendous poverty.
And this was a huge Jewish community.
Yes.
With all kinds of Jewish functions and organizations.
That's right.
You had Jewish theater, you had everything.
Everything, yes.
What was that whole world like? Besides the poverty, what was that whole world? I mean, if you had theater...
First of all, the dominating party was Bund, Aguda and Bund. Aguda dominated. Aguda was anti-Zionist. Bund was anti-Zionist. Yes, must consider it.
So your family was the different family.
We were progressive.
Yes.
We dressed differently.
How?
In normal European clothes. But we were a very narrow group of people who made it good. My father, they were very limited. He had 5 children, 3 daughters. One daughter got married, so he opened for them a shop. The first Pole that entered the shop said, "Oh, here I see, it says bad smell." Jews went out. They imitated Germans completely, and Poles and Hungarians and Romanians, all of them. There was no future. No future. No future in trade. I went once to the Polish parliament, and I heard a Jewish speaker telling everything how Jews contributed to the Polish commerce with the geese, which were selling to France and to England and all over the world, and so on. Next, a Pole came out and said, "Oh, this is nonsense. You are destroying us. You are exploiting us. We do better ourselves." That was the policy.
You heard that in the Senate?
Yes.
What was it like on Chagim in Warsaw?
Oh, there was a good tradition. In the Jewish quarter, it was a complete standstill. But you have never a Jewish word on the radio. You never. Jews were not allowed in Yiddish to appear on the radio. Only Jewish humorists who imitated Polish language were given place. Korczak was for many years, he had his 1 hour, he as an old man, old grandfather hour to speak to children. They stopped it. Everything became anti, and my father was beaten. He went into a garden, and Poles who were selling anti-Semitic newspaper, Jews to Palestine and so on, beat him up.
What year was that?
I think it was 36 or 37.
Did Korczak come to your house? I mean, did you meet him?
I don't remember. I cannot tell you. But I know that my mother and he were, not only my mother, her sister was running a big Jewish school in Warsaw. She also was in good contact with. As a matter of fact, Korczak, as a doctor, saved once her daughter. She was very sick on the New Year's Eve, and no doctor wanted to come, and he came and treated her. Yes.
When you look now at what Warsaw was like then, in the early, mid-1930s, how do you remember it?
You know, when I came to Toronto, to the Jewish quarter, I felt for a minute that I am in a Warsaw.
When was this?
That was about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. When I go in Mea Sharim, there is something of it. It's not the same, but something of it.
Okay. All right, so now you've been released from the prison in September 1940. Yes?
No, I was arrested.
In October 1939?
That's right. And I was released in September, 40. There was amnesty. And I had a good chance. I was asked, we were all asked, Polish citizens, what do you want? You have 3 choices. You can join the Polish army, you can join the Red Army, or you can work in Soviet Union. The work in Soviet Union will be only in cities of the 2nd category. You know, cities in your Soviet Union were divided in categories, and certain people were not allowed to live in cities of 1st category. For instance, you wanted to live in Moscow, you must get permission. So we would be able to work in a small cities somewhere. So I chose Polish army.
Why?
Why? Because I thought it's a good way to fight Hitler. That's all. And maybe a good way to get out from the Soviet Union. Yes.
But you knew that they would look at you as a Jew in the army.
Yes. I spoke Polish better than many Poles, and I still had hopes that everything will be all right. So I traveled for 2 weeks to a place where they started organizing the Polish army.
Where was that?
Buzuluk. Buzuluk and
Where is that located?
I forgot the name of the big town. But it's south. I went 2 weeks by train south to Buzuluk, and there they started making formations. And then one day Ilya Ehrenburg came to visit us. And he asked to speak with the Jewish soldiers. So we were about 7. We were sitting with Ilya Ehrenburg, and he started shouting at us, "How can you Jews join this fascist Polish army," and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And after,
What did he want you to do?
wait,
Yeah.
after his visit, he came with a very high general and Kavode officer. They started getting Jews out. My good friend who died recently in Jerusalem, Eisenberg, he was a painter. He was thrown out because his name was Eisenberg. But I, because of name and because of my school, I was left. And we were told that they don't want us, so we are going to join the British Army. So we came here through the Persia to Palestine.
Through Persia?
Yes. We came first to Kermine, which is in Kazakhstan, later to Kazakhstan, yes. I met here the ambassador of Kazakhstan. I asked him, "Do you know where Guzar is?" He says, "No, it's a big town in Kazakhstan." Never heard of it. He's ambassador of
Which year we came to Palestine?
What you win?
There was hunger, cholera, typhus. Every day we went as a squad accompanying 4 or 5 people dying from hunger. I was maybe 30 kilo. When I arrived here, I went straight to the hospital. I was in the British hospital.
When is this? When did you arrive in Palestine?
I arrived on the ship Dunera. I don't know whether you know Dunera. Dunera was famous because from London they sent all the German citizens to Australia at the outbreak on Dunera all around the world. And they treated them very badly. Australia said that they put them in camps in Australia. Then Dunera came, picked us from Bandar Shah in Persia, Bandar Shah in Persia, all around Aden. On the train, we came by train to Lod.
To Lod.
And from Lod, I was sent right away to the hospital in Beryakov. In Beryakov, there was a British hospital, number 27. I was treated there for a few weeks. And later I was sent to a convalescent camp next to Netanya. You know, there were big convalescent camps south and north of Netanya for British soldiers, Australian soldiers, so on. And when I came out, I came to Tel Aviv and I enlisted in Buffs.
Buffs?
Buffs.
What are Buffs?
Buffs is
British.
Palestine infantry.
Okay, wait. Before we get to there, back up. When did you wait? You got to Lod on the train from where? From where?
Aden.
From Port Said, we went by Kantara to Rehovot and to Lod.
Okay. When did you arrive? What was the date of that?
I don't remember.
You don't remember when you arrived in Palestine?
No.
What year?
Approximately.
I don't know. I don't remember.
But
It had to have been. It was yes. It had to be. It had to be 1940 or 41.
It was 41.
It was 41.
It was already the Rommel was closing Oel Alamein at the time. Yes, Egypt was under curfew. But we came to the British hospital in Ber Yaakov. It was British Army hospital. You know, it was a perfect hospital. Today they say in hospitals, they should treat such hospitals to ease the shortage. It was perfect. In tents.
How long did you have to convalesce?
I think it was about months or 6 weeks. And Netanya, and then I enlisted in the British Army. Buffs.
In 1941. You don't know what month?
Yes, I enlisted. Here you have my picture in the Polish Army still. Here. And then
Yeah.
I joined the 26th Company Palestinian Buffs.
And what was your job?
It was infantry. And we were guarding the Germans at Latrun. At Latrun, when you pass next to the monastery, were big camps, German and Italian prisoners of war. And I was on guard there, and I got bored, and I asked for something more. So they transferred me to REME. I was in Company 29 REME. We went repairing British equipment up to Italy with the 8th Army.
Did you meet anybody that you knew from Warsaw during this time? Your people that you knew as a...
No.
So you had no idea what was going on with your family?
Nothing. I remember standing on a tower at Latrun, and there were first some news, Jerusalem Post, on page 3, on the 22nd or 23rd of April, published 4 lines that there were news that was uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto.
April 19th, your birthday was when it started.
Yes.
So that you knew...
And I was thinking, here I stand, and there is my family. They don't know what my father and my mother died a year during the occupation.
In the ghetto?
Yes. And my father and my sister perished, I think. They were taken to Treblinka during the fighting to Warsaw Ghetto. My father arranged for my sister photographs, something for you. A photograph that she looked like a Gentile and was fabricating for her papers to get her out. But he wanted to keep her for Passover night. And it started on Passover night and they never got out.
How do you know that your mother died the first year?
One of my relatives survived and told me all this. And complained that his son had also the papers and my father stopped them because he wanted them for Passover night.
Wow.
Yes, this is history.
Yes. Yes. I mean, they were going to go the night before, the 2 nights before they were going to leave? Your sister, for example, was going to go a couple of nights before, you think?
If my sister would get out, the life would be very difficult.
Yes.
And they were in Warsaw. There were hundreds of people who were hunting for such Jews.
Yes.
To get money, to get everything, to finish them off. But some survived. Some survived. My aunt survived. She came here at the age of 80. She started running a library in Haifa. She knew 8 languages.
How many languages did you know?
No, I German and Polish and a little Yiddish and a little Hebrew, that's all.
Wait, you learned English here?
I learned English at the Jerusalem Post. No, in the army.
In the army, the British
When I joined the REME, I was all the time with British soldiers. We were transporting, for instance, ink for the warships from India to Beirut. So we went to Karachi, we went by a ship from Karachi to Suez, and then by train to Beirut, and so on. We were very busy up to Italy. Then we started sending a lot of arms that we found on the way. We started taking them back to Arets. You see, our duty was to go immediately behind the front lines and to fix machinery, bakery, to bread for the troops. The bakery was destroyed. To fix it and to provide bread. This was my job, to fix the machine, everything. It was very interesting. Vocation machines which dig the earth, all this we were doing. But we had a lot of arms. So every 3 months we got 2 weeks. And the train went from Tel El Kebir to Kantara and to Rehovot. So you could make a parcel, put the parcel somewhere. So it didn't belong to you. In case they found it, they wouldn't know to whom it belonged. But you can bring some arms. They found it, they started discharging us. And the brigade was formed.
Were you bringing in arms?
No, yes, I brought something to Malach Hamisha. Yes. Everybody had one kibbutz where he had a contact.
Yes.
So my contact was Ma'aleh Hamisha. Yeah.
Wow.
But the day I got my discharge at, I think, 9 o'clock in the morning, and at night I was already working at the post.
December 1st, 1945.
Because I had a profession.
Yes, yes. Can you tell me a little bit, what was Palestine like in 1941?
It was at war. There were shortages. I made exchange. I took from my camp the butter that we got, and I got from a lady that I got acquainted margarine, because there was, and so on, there was shortage of cigarettes, of food, of everything. And we soldiers, we had everything, which was good. Still, when I was discharged for 6 weeks, all the workers at the Jerusalem Post smoked my cigarettes.
You didn't smoke.
But I started working on the same day. You see what is a joke? In the morning, I went first to Tel Aviv, to Asaf. Asaf was the secretary. His brother was a big philosopher, Asaf. He was secretary of the Printers Union. He gave me a letter to Mr. Agron. I brought the letter to Mr. Agron, and Agron asked whether I can work at 6 o'clock in the evening. And how did I work in the evening? You never believe it. In Polish. They produced Polish books, Polish newspaper for the Polish army, and the people who produced Polish newspaper knew not a single word Polish.
Wow.
And I knew Polish. I was a treasure. You never know.
That's amazing. It is amazing. That is amazing. When did you start working for the English Jerusalem Post?
As I saw that the Poles were leaving. Well, the war has ended, and they were slowly liquidating. Gazeta Polska went to Tel Aviv. They told me to go to Tel Aviv. I said, no. I started working in English. In the beginning, it was a little difficult, but if you want something, you do it. And I became, first of all, I was linotypist, then I was in charge of the whole shift. Luria and Agron loved me very much because they knew that I was working not as only a worker, but I was participating in a great events. The newspaper allows you to active participation at the night, at 12 o'clock in the night, when the news came from Galilee, from here, we were living it. And this is only can happen in a newspaper.
But didn't everyone in the yeshuv feel that they were contributing and making history and working towards the...
Most. There were others. But there were about 60 workers in the press. They were all fine people. But there was one who said never, 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 and he finally went to America.
He said never, never, never what? He didn't want to...
Never, he didn't like anything. He wasn't, they are always different people.
Yes,
They didn't want to share nothing.
Yes.
People were laughing at him, said, okay, you can laugh at me, I will want to go to America. And he went to America. And I am sure that his children are coming here.
The sense then, from 1945 then, at the end of World War II until 1948, you knew that there was or did you not, or did you know, or feel that the state was going to happen?
No, we didn't know what will happen. People said state. I didn't feel that this. I felt only that everybody has to do his duty, and that's all. Because we have no choice.
And you didn't see what the future. You didn't imagine that was people were talking about the state.
Yes, but look, the situation was very bad. The work was very difficult. You know, we had to have a special pass. There were incidents. There were permanent curfews. I rented a bed, not a room, a bed, in hotel, three men in one room.
The Himmelfarb Hotel.
Himmelfarb on the third floor, because it was opposite the press. So I didn't have. Once I went, and 2 British soldiers attacked Leah Bendor. And I went to her help, and I would be beaten. But Luria came, and so they ran away. But I had blood on my this, yes. They didn't like us, and they had their reasons, because we were shooting at them. Yes, Begin's people, they were shooting, they were killing soldiers and policemen whenever they had the opportunity. So there was a struggle.
And Where did you line up in the political divisions?
We were all Haganah people. That was automatic. Because Agron was a labor and Haganah man, and Luria was Haganah man, and Adler, who was the general manager, was Haganah man. And but what you could be a member of Mizrahi, yes. But I didn't know anybody from Lehi or from Irgun in my
Circle.
yes. Mizrahi, yes. Hapoel HaMizrahi, Mizrahi. Aguda, yes.
Did you feel that way yourself politically? That's where you were lining up?
Look, I wasn't thinking a lot about it. I was thinking to make a good money, to get married, to buy myself a flat, to become independent. That was my purpose, to settle down. It was enough after how many, 7 years of wandering and army, everything. I was busy, but it was good to work for the post. It was good, always good, because it was like a kibbutz. On the first night that I started working, Agronor met me, asked me who I was, and so on, and so on, and so on. So on, when we were recollecting this and that. Yes.
You felt mishpacha?
It was, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially there was American Mrs. Rossi. She was taking care. Later she built the Post Toy Fund and other funds, and so she was very active.
And by now you already knew that your family had died?
Yes. Yes, because one of my aunts arrived from France, and she knew exactly what happened and when happened and so on.
And did you feel, or were you already feeling from the time you went running?
It was a loss.
That you were an orphan?
A loss, but then I met my future wife, and we became very friendly, and she was with her mother family. They also came through Russia, through Persia, the same way. We had a lot of common background, and this became my family. And they weren't working, and I was working, and I could provide.
You wrote in the article you wrote 3 years ago that it was even harder to find a place to live than it was to find work.
Place to live was a great problem, and we solved it. First of all, when I got married, first I rent a room for myself at King George IX. I paid 9 sterling a month, which is a tremendous, but I was independent. And I planned to study. I already enrolled at the Hebrew University, and I wanted to study, but I had to work. And the war broke out, and I didn't study, and there was no time for it, and later I didn't feel. I have no excuse. I should have stayed, but I had to provide. I had to provide. And there was explosion at the post.
Well, yes, we're going to get to that in a minute. 1 second.
And there was explosion at
Ben Yehuda.
Ben Yehuda.
Yes.
And then the door in our apartment blew up.
Yes.
And we had to go back to the hotel. So I started looking desperately. And there was a house, King George 45B, which was exposed to the wall. And people didn't want to rent apartments. And I rented apartment. I paid 300 sterling, but I was a tenant. I had my rights for monthly fee a 3-room flat. And we moved there, myself and my wife and her mother. And my son was born there.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So when you started working, what did you think of Gershon Agron?
He was above us. You know,
Well, he was the boss.
yes, but a boss can be above you and yet you feel close to him. And this was, you could go to him. Once I wrote an article, for instance, about the book of Esther. And the editor said he didn't accept it, and I went to Agron, and Agron read it and accepted it. It means you could go to him, you could speak to him. At night, at 12 o'clock, when there was the preparation for the first edition, we all gathered around the table, waiting for the final corrections. We were discussing politics, elections, everything. He was one of us. He arranged for trips, he arranged for education, he was like a head of a kibbutz. And Post was Rana kibbutz, and yet there was a distance. That was a special skill.
What kind of trips did he arrange for? What kind of trips did he arrange for?
To Weizmann Institute, here and there. We went, yes.
Were you able to travel outside of Yerushalayim easily?
Not the first year. The first year, after 49, I worked only nights. It was very difficult because of the shortage of equipment.
Yes. We'll get to 48 in a second.
Yes.
So I'm still going to work between 45 and 48, and 1947 actually. So those 2 years, you started working December 1st until Kaftep in November. That's 2 years. And you've already gotten married.
Yes. On the roof of the Vadrak, I must tell you the story.
Yes.
We couldn't decide whether to get married or not.
We couldn't, or she couldn't?
She couldn't. I tell you why. Her father was in London, and they had prospects to go to England. Mother with 2 daughters, and Dana didn't know whether she wants to stay or not. So we decided for 2 weeks not to see each other. And I wasn't expected to work on the night of February 1.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody didn't come, and they called me, and I went to Dana. She lived in the same hotel, but in a different floor and different rooms. So we met. So I went to the post. On the way I went to Dana. I said, I am going, can you make me a sandwich? We said 2 weeks. She closed the door. So I went to the post, and there was explosion. And after the explosion, she tried to get to me. But they made a cordon of people. They didn't allow her. So it took her about an hour to get to me. When she got to me, she said she decided she is staying and we are getting married. So we got married 2 weeks after the explosion.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
The explosion was on the 1st of February, married on the 12th of February. And we moved into the hotel, and then I got the flat. We moved in the flat. We had not a single piece of furniture because her mother and 2 daughters lived in Matzah Villa, but underground, not in the villa, but below in Matzah Villa in Talpiot. The villa doesn't exist anymore.
The explosion was at 10:45 at night.
11.
11 o'clock.
I have still, you can see the watch there which burned.
Oh, we'll look at that in a
You
second.
can see the
We will-
matrix from the machine also.
Okay, 1 second.
I was sitting at the machine and I was behind the machine. So the blow came on the machine. So I was saved. But it was dark and noisy and you felt and bad smell and a lot of smoke. And Yerushalmi, who was working with me, fell next to me. So I pushed him to the door and we got outside and we were fortunate. 50 meters from us was a Hadassah point and they treated us. They treated me on the eye. My eye this eye still hurt from that time. It was treated and it's still treated. I have appointment on the 23rd of March again, but it's 60%. It's not, but I've got something in my eye. So they took me to Kupat Cholim. There is no building. It's already, they took out the building, and for several weeks I had walking only with one eye, yes.
Three post staffers were killed: Chaim Farber, Nathan Rabinowitz, and
That's
Moshe Weinberg.
right. Farber was killed, Rabinovich, but Tawil, his son was director of National Insurance. Tawil, his father lost one eye and a bit of nose. This was flying pieces of lead.
Of lead.
Of lead.
Yes, right.
Flying, this was the big danger. But we were fortunate, I told you, because the building was built in 1932 or 3 after an earthquake. And they put steel roads very thick. So the explosion was outside of the windows. So this building stood, but the building opposite fell down. The building opposite, which was only a structure, fell down. But our building, we were hurt by fire, by smoke, by pieces of, yes.
How many people were in the building at the time?
I think 30, 40 people. 30, 40 people. It was night shift. It was 11 o'clock at the night. We closed the newspaper usually at 12. Deadline was 12 o'clock, first edition, 1 o'clock, second edition.
So you were close to finishing the paper.
Yes, we were close to the finishing of the paper.
And then, but the column, the front page one column was written then, a new column.
That's right. That's right.
By Courtney, David Courtney.
Yes, you can see the newspaper.
Yes.
In the big
Stacks.
yeah,
Yes.
no collection
In the
of
bound volumes.
yes, bound volume.
Yes.
I have no bound volumes also. I have separately. I kept it. I kept it for memory. Yes. But I couldn't participate in. They printed because of my eye. I couldn't participate.
You couldn't work for a few days.
I only 2-3 days I started working. I started working because I had to work. They asked questions and so on. So I got insurance for my watch, and there is still 1 mill that burned on my machine. But for 1 year, I was working in Achva Press. Next to the post building was Achva Press. They rented us the machines only at the night. So I worked for 1 year only at night at Achva, bringing the stuff to the post because the big machine, the roll was below and it wasn't damaged because it was below the earth's level. So we could print the newspaper.
So why did you need in the building next door?
We needed the the lead. We were setting lead at Achva.
And printing it downstairs.
Bring it downstairs.
Got it. You wrote about this 3 years ago when you wrote this, your history there. You wrote that the bombing of the post was a turning point for the Yishuv.
Yes.
Why?
Because they started guarding the streets.
Until then, there was no guards in the street?
No, you could walk easily wherever you wanted.
But there were still British soldiers
Yes,
here.
but there were no guards. No, they wouldn't dare. The British wouldn't allow it.
Because
They wanted free transport. But then Yishuv had an excuse, and they started closing the streets. Hasolel was closed off. The whole atmosphere has changed. This was war. This was declaration of war.
But weren't there attacks on Jews before
Yes, but sporadic, here and there. As a matter of fact, I was attending Buber's lecture, and I was student for about 2 months. At the Hebrew University, I was attending Professor Buber's lecture.
One second, this is falling off the side. No, put on the strap. Put on the...
But I needed to...
sorry.
There's another strap.
I was studying English under Professor Morris, and I was studying, I don't remember what, under Buber. And we were sitting on number 9 bus, coming back from Scopus, and we saw the fire rising from the center next in Mamilla. They set fire to the Jewish workshops at Mamilla. There were a lot of workshops on those days in Mamilla,
Yes.
and there was Electric Corporation shop.
Yes.
They started fire.
This was when? This was a few months before?
No, this was a day after the partition.
So I meant to go back to...
A day after the partition.
I want to go back to that because that's, of
That's
course, a
right.
major day, November 29th, 1946.
I was still a student there.
You were still a student then?
Yes.
And what do you remember about that day? I mean, everyone knew the United Nations was going to vote.
The Haganah mobilized people, put them 10 with pieces of wood on track, and we were driving around, which was nonsense.
As what? What was that for?
Just to show our force. Demonstration.
With pieces of wood?
Pieces of something.
A pole?
A pole or something like that.
With flags?
No. Just a piece of wood. 6, 7 men on a half truck driving through the streets. If Arab or something happens, go out and beat them. That was Haganah.
So were you listening on the radio to the vote?
I don't remember. I cannot tell you. I don't think so. I think that when the state was declared, I was sitting next to the school here in Mamilla. We were on this side of the Mamilla Park, and they were in Palace Hotel on the other side. So we stood guard here. I was still with bandage, but I was in Haganah. It was so stupid. I had a gun and a grenade. I stood at the corner. So here was Bevingrad. This was the British. Here were the Arabs, and here were the Jews. And I was standing guard in their guard for what? It was funny, but nobody thought it's funny.
1 second. Back up 1 second. So you don't know where you were on November 29th, 1947. You don't remember where you were that day?
I think I was in the trenches in the what's today Independence Park.
Okay. Now, so you didn't work at the Post that night?
I was.
You did? The next day's paper was the vote of the UN.
We had our duties in Haganah independent of... When you worked, you worked. When you were free, you did Haganah duty.
did you have to do the Haganah and not work? In other
Look.
words, if the Haganah said you have to guard here tonight,
Yes, yes,
and you can't
yes.
go to work, you didn't go to work.
No. They considered us. They considered us. And I tell you a better joke. I don't remember the date, but one of the Baram, he was mefaket of Haganah in Jerusalem. One day I was working in daytime, and Bar Am came to the press and took 7 of us to headquarters, which was where the in King George, where today only this stands. There is a bus stop. How they? I forgot how they called the building. There was a building there.
Oh, the Tutankhamun. Not Tutankhamun. I know you saw it, King George. Yes, it's in front of the Mashbir.
Yes. And he said, no. Zvielli, you go back to work, and you go back to work, and 5 men he sent to the old city. Because we made a contact with the Jews in old city, very short, 2-3 days, from Zion Gate there, and he sent one of them, Radosh, was later killed there, and another two members of the press were killed there in the old city. And me, who sent back to the press.
So you worked that night.
I worked that night.
And what was the feeling in the Yishuv when the United Nations voted?
We had to fight. That was all. Look, we have to fight and do whatever is best. There was no other option.
No, but here is the emotional feeling. The Medina, the state of Israel, is about to happen.
I don't know. I didn't
think like
have. Of course, something will happen, but whatever it will happen, we have to do our job, and that's all.
When did you join the Haganah, and when did they teach you how to shoot a gun?
Oh, I had experience. I was from the
Oh, from the army. Right.
Had experience. About a month after I started at the work, I already joined Haganah, which was already what? They sent me to guard the Jewish agents. So I stood in the courtyard guarding the Jewish agents, or they send you here. They could offer you to go for a course. I didn't think I need a course. I had so many years of the army, I had enough of it.
I forgot to ask you, when you joined the British Army, what was it like to learn how to shoot?
A good army.
A good army.
I had only work of high price for the British Army. It was well organized. They took care of every man. Everything was done properly. No, I had, after what I have seen in Russia, what I have seen in Poles, this was a good army. I was very proud.
Did you see yes? Did you see the movie Exodus?
Yes, certainly.
How is there anything about that movie that was true in the sense of the feeling, the sense of the Yishuv fighting the British in that way? I mean, Paul Newman fools them and gets all the equipment. But the idea of you've served in the British Army, now from 1945 to 1948, you're fighting against the British Army in a way.
There was a difference between us as a members of Haganah and Irgun. Irgun was completely different. Their outlook, their position was completely, it was a different world in every respect. Lehi was completely different.
So you felt, but you also knew that you were trying to get the British out.
Look, I must tell you that Stern told my father about his plans. And my father laughed at him. We printed his newspaper daily, Tolddot. We printed Polish weekly Jerozolima Wyzwolona. And Stern told him 10,000 Jews, young Jews, 10 ships, Polish arms, we will liberate Palestine. And my father used to tell him, Mr. Begin, you are talking about liberating Palestine and you cannot pay your bills. And Begin, when he married, he lived in a one-room flat, and if he got a penny, it was only for his work. You are a great man. Great man.
So you had seen him in Warsaw and you saw him here in Jerusalem.
Yes. But my memories from Warsaw, it's 70 years ago. What can I remember? Look, I'm an old man, I'm 94. But they were Klarman. I don't know whether you know the name Klarman. Yes, he was the world head of revisionist organization. Or Moshe Sneh. They were all people, great people. But my father said they are fighting on paper.
Did you hear Begin speak back then?
No. If I heard him, I wouldn't remember.
Did you feel anger that he wasn't doing it what you thought was the right way?
There was no anger.
There was
There
was a clash between the Gun and the Haganah.
I can tell you that Agron wrote what he had to write, but he had high respect for Begin. In the underground, he had to write that they are wrong, they are destroying us, but he had respect. And maybe in the depths of his heart, he thought he's right, but he had to keep his mouth shut.
Did you feel the same way?
Many people, I don't know others, but many people felt that way. They were phenomenal people. Look how they behaved in jail when they were sentenced to death. They were heroes. Where do you see such people today?
When the British were taking the young boys off the street, the Haganah boy, the Irgun boys off the street, and then hanging them. You remember that?
That was terrible. Terrible. It was terrible, but it was a fight. But what this fight, British would never leave. Look, British didn't leave Palestine. Did they leave Palestine? No. They left what we have today, but they made a pact with Jordan, and they owned Jordan. It means they never left Palestine. It is a big lie. In 1948, they signed pact. Jordan is protected by England. Any action against Jordan will be act against Britain, yes? And Glab Pasha was sitting there, and the British officers. They had no choice from our part, but they remained in Palestine. Only they named it Jordan.
So you said that you were on guard duty that night in May 5th of 1948?
Yes.
And how did you know, when did you first hear the name of the new country?
A day after, 2 days after.
Did you work that Saturday night For the Sunday paper?
I don't remember.
The one that said State of Israel is born?
I don't remember. I cannot tell you because I don't remember. My wife was different. Maybe I was preoccupied with my eye, with my work, with Haganah. My wife, Ran, she bought the stamps, special editions, and so she was proud. She was a great Zionist. She worked later, found job in Joint, and later she was a big figure in Hadassah. She was in charge of all donations, Hadassah donations, yes. She traveled to America. She had many American friends. She met Mrs. Roosevelt. She met many actors, great people, and so my wife was a great Zionist.
The officers, did you meet Yitzhak Rabin? Did you meet any of the officers then?
Don't remember.
No, you were just doing your...
I don't remember even who was. I was later a little in Notre Dame. I don't remember who was my officer, who was in charge there. I don't remember.
I think we're going to call a halt.
Yes.
Because it's already 7:15. We've been an hour and a half.
Okay.
It was a good, very, very good taping, and we'll continue. Part 2. I just want to do a little bit, maybe a half hour of 45 minutes.
Whenever is convenient for you in
Just
the afternoon, I am at home.
Okay.